it's not about doing everything slowly, right? I'm not an extremist of slowness. Faster is often better. We all know that. This slow revolution is about doing things at the right speed. So sometimes fast, sometimes slow. You're playing with all the different paces and rhythms and cadences and speeds in between. And if you go a little deeper, slow is it's a mindset. It's about being present. It's about being in the moment. It's about doing one thing at a time. It's about giving to each thing the time and attention it deserves. Ultimately, it's about doing everything not as fast as possible, but as well as possible, which is a really simple idea, but one with power to revolutionize everything.
I'm your host, Neelam Brar, and today we're honored to have a very special guest who has inspired millions with his insights on slowing down and embracing life at every stage. Our guest is Karl Honoré, a best-selling author, a broadcaster, and the voice of the global slowdown movement. Karl's TED Talks have reached millions of viewers, and his work has been pivotal in changing how we think about time, aging, and the pace of life. What are your thoughts on how we can really combat ageism and really help society or help people think about their worth and their value at any age?
The first is, I think language is very important. If you look at our vernacular, so many phrases we use tell the same story, which is that aging sucks, right? So phrases that just trip off our tongue without our even thinking about it, like you forget where your keys are and it's a senior moment, right? Or you say you feel a twinge in your back and you're feeling your age. I'll give you an example. The other day I was watching an interview on the BBC, and there was a reporter who'd been reporting in the Middle East for 40 years. So he knows this inside out, right? Bringing all kinds of knowledge and wisdom and background to his explanation of what's going on in Israel. And at one point, he's talking about something that happened in 1982. And he says, back in 1982, and he prefaced it by saying, I'm really showing my age here. That in 1982, and I thought, wow, did I just hear because what you're saying when you're saying I'm showing my age is, I'm a bit old. I feel ashamed of that. I need to put it out there so we can just deal with it and then we can move on. When in fact, you should be saying, I'm showing off my age. Because the very fact that you've got that experience under your belt means that you bring so much more context and texture and layer and nuance to this discussion than somebody who is 30 years younger. So I think language, the check our language, I think is a good starting point. Another suggestion I would throw out is to mix up the generations. Throughout human history, people of different ages mixed and mingled everywhere. That was just the way of the world. We were around people of different ages in the fields, in markets, at home, in the street. And then we got into the modern world and we siloed into little bubbles where everybody was the same age. And it starts at school. So I'm a big believer in whether it's joining a dance group or a ping pong club or whatever it is, just getting out or having a chat with your neighbor who's a different age down the street, that kind of thing, and just exposing yourself to different people with different experiences. And I think that can help us all wipe away some of this ageist gunk.
For those of our listeners who are interested in understanding your perspective around slowing down when it comes to retirement, what would be your advice?
It's not about doing everything slowly, right? I'm not an extremist of slowness. Faster is often better. We all know that. This slow revolution is about doing things at the right speed. So sometimes fast, sometimes slow. You're playing with all the different paces and rhythms and cadences and speeds in between. And if you go a little deeper, slow is it's a mindset. It's about being present. It's about being in the moment. It's about doing one thing at a time. It's about giving to each thing the time and attention it deserves. Ultimately, it's about doing everything not as fast as possible, but as well as possible, which is a really simple idea, but one with power to revolutionize everything. So if you take that slow lens and bring it into retirement, it's not so much about the number of things you do, but how you do them and in what spirit.
What is a practical tip as they're taking that time to figure out what the next
Mm.
phase or chapter really looks like?
To expose yourself to novelty, because I think that will open you up to new side. parts of your character that maybe had just been dormant as you were stuck in, or not stuck, but you were in the world that you were in, you were living that life for maybe 20, 30 years, just to change the scenery, change the chip a little bit, allow you to rotate the world and see it from a different angle and give you a fresh perspective and a fresh new way of looking at things. So I think travel is a really useful thing. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go to Southeast. You don't have to, you could just go to the cabin or something, whatever, just to get out of the kind of physical place and get somewhere new. So I think that's useful as well. I think also to just to try stuff out, just put yourself out there. And then a third tip I would give to people is to talk to people who are maybe a little bit further down the same track, who've been through this transition that you're now going into. And those could be close friends, they might be acquaintances, it might be a network through your organization and company that you can tap into. And just get a little bit of perspective from somebody who's further down the same road, because that can be very helpful as well. You can get yourself whipped into a state of panic and thinking, oh no, you don't see the horizon. But just talking to somebody who's been through that can be really helpful just for widening the scope, allowing you to see pathways you might not otherwise contemplate.
In America, loneliness and isolation is a massive problem. And even sometimes social people feel lonely. I personally have felt lonely after a whole day of socializing. And so, what's your advice for our listeners on how we can cultivate a more meaningful relationship by embracing the slow movement?
People often assume that older people are more lonely, but actually, if you look at the stats recently, it's the young generation who are who are suffering from loneliness more, who have fewer people they can turn to in moments of crises and so on. So it's another reminder that some of the stereotypes we have about aging are wide of the mark. How can we combat loneliness and build those deeper connections? I think a good starting point is, well, let's talk about tech, right? We're so distracted by our phones. Just simply having a phone, there's done some research showing that having phone on the table between two people when they're having a conversation, those two people keep the conversation at a more superficial level because one of them's thinking about what's on the phone or what's and that could be two friends, parent, child, whatever it is, parent, husband, wife. So a simple way to deepen the connection you have with someone is to hide your phone. Like a super simple hack is to put the phone in your bag, or as I've done here, under my hat, right on the desk. It's just not there.
So,
Yeah.
what are some actionable steps our listeners could take to really begin aligning their lives with their core values through retirement?
I think that taking that time to just to let the mind wander, to think, to feel your way around your life, look back, reflect on all the things you've learned. Because by the time you're at reaching retirement age, you've got this enormous onboard database of your own experience. I think by that point, people probably already have at least an inkling of what lights them up, of what's going to put fire in their belly, what's going to give them that warm sensation of waking up in the morning and thinking, this isn't work. This is something I want to go do, right? I want to get out of bed, have my breakfast and get off and do that. So just taking the time to think it through, right? Talk to people who you know, talk to people who are in the area you think might be the area that you want to be in. I think that's the sort of start point.
Carl, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I feel like I could talk to you for many more hours. You're such a wealth of really actionable insights and information that is so easy to understand. For our listeners, if you're ready to slow down and embrace aging and live more intentionally, stay tuned to Mind My Age for more inspiring conversations. Remember, your best years are still ahead.